Good morning. Welcome to France. Rod Fleming here. I want to talk to you today about the Google storm in a latte cup. So I'm sure you know, a Google senior engineer circulated a document which tried to address some of the cultural issues within Google. And in that document, this engineer made statements that basically say that there are innate differences between men and women, which cause them to be more suited to particular areas of responsibility and tasks. And of course the world has gone insane because one is not allowed to say things like that. It's against the political narrative of the left. And of course Google, being a Californian IT company, is so minging with leftist culture and ideology, they can't stand it. Now I'm going to put the document itself, which I've downloaded. Thank you, Stefan Molyneux, by the way. Well done finding that. I couldn't. I've downloaded. I will put it back up on my site, and good luck taking it down from there. Believe me. And I would like you to read this document. And if you do read this document, this is the famous document that has caused all the furore. And if you do read it and you have an ounce of common sense, you'll go, what's wrong with that? It's all perfectly reasonable. It takes a balanced, intelligent, analytic view of the nature of a problem and proposes strategies to solve it. It's a typical engineer's approach. Absolutely. Look at the facts, see where you want to be, how do we get from where we are to where we want to be. It's simple. But look at the storm of pus that is flying from the lanced abscess of the left now. Just look at the storm of nonsense, of lies, of innuendo, of ad hominems against anyone who dares to say that, hey, wait a minute, this document, it's fair enough. Molyneux in his video, which I'll put a link to, it's a good video. I don't always agree with Stefan Molyneux, but on this case, he's absolutely right. The left is essentially a cult, right? It's not really right to call it a religion, although I have done. I've called it a materialistic religion, which I think is fair enough. The left depends on faith, right? Because it depends on the idea that its proposed utopian society, which will happen if only we will allow ourselves to be slaughtered in our droves, can actually happen in the first place and is worth all that pain. 250 million, at least, probably more, people murdered by the left in the 20th century alone. The left is the biggest killer humanity has ever known. We don't have a worse problem. Even the bubonic plague didn't do as much damage in Europe in the 14th century as the left communism did in Russia in the 20th, in percentage terms. It didn't. So think about it. Think about it a minute. It's all dependent on faith. There is not a single example of factual evidence that backs up the notion that we should all just, let the lefties have their way, right? So it's a cult. It depends on faith. It depends on the promise of a better future, just like Christianity does. Yes, you be a good person on this earth and do as we tell you, and guess what? You'll get to spend eternity in heaven. And in the leftist materialistic religion it is, yes, you be a good person, you do as we tell you, and you can live in our wonderful communist utopia where nobody wants anything and everybody is equal. It's utter shite. It is lies from end to end. There is no truth in it. You cannot stand up and say, I think there might be something a wee bit problematic with your Christian religion, pal, because you ain't got no evidence. And then in the same breath say, oh yeah, but the left, communism, Marxism, whoa, yeah, that's fine. It's bollocks. If you don't see that the logical non sequitur that you're executing in doing that, then you really need to go back to school. Because you're stupid. You have not learned a damn thing. Now, to go back to the document itself, as I say, it simply outlines a wide variety of things that we already know are true. We know there are trait characteristic differences between men and women. Women tend to be more cooperative. They tend to be more people-oriented. Men tend to be more competitive. They tend to be more object-oriented. Study after study after study has been done on this. We're talking about Google here, you know, and we're talking about some of the most highly paid software people on the planet. All of these people are extremely high intelligence. So, you know, the argument about we've basically isolated that, right? We've taken any intelligence arguments out of it. So all we're really talking about in suitability for various jobs is these underlying traits that on average, and remember, these are on average. There are some women who are very masculine in their thinking. There are some men who are very feminine in their thinking. But on average, there are trait characteristic differences. As I think I've showed you before, if you look at trait characteristic curves, you'll see that they're like two bell curves, but they're slightly shifted. So there's significant overlap, but also significant differentiation. Okay? Men are on average target and competitively organised. Women are on average organised on the idea of cooperation and jointly held long-term objectives, right? So they think very differently. And you have to understand, these things were evolved. These are evolved differences. Why did they evolve? Because it's good to have both points of view. Because humanity actually needs target-oriented, quick-thinking, responsive males, and it needs group-oriented, cooperative, long-term thinking females. Duh! I mean, good grief, you people, you children on the left really need to grow up, because the adults are really fed up of you. You know, we really have had enough. I've considered myself to be a tolerant person most of my life. I have 4 kids of my own. You know, this has gone too far. You don't go around destroying the most successful and the best society on the fucking planet just because it doesn't fit with your preconceived notions of an ideal world which we can all achieve if only you take the pill. Have the pill. Swallow the pill. Eat the pill. Eat the bullshit. Eat the lies. Give up. Surrender. That's what you want you to do. And of course, as soon as anybody comes up with facts, and this is why they've made this document so hard to find, and it's why I'm putting it on my website, rodfleming.com. Links. It'll be right at the top. They don't want you to get hold of the facts, right? Because they have no response to facts. They don't get it. The left today has been infected by the disease of cultural Marxism. And cultural Marxist disease is predicated on the philosophical notion, well, I'd call it an anti-philosophy, but anyway, of postmodernism, right? Postmodernism denies everything that modernism holds to be true. And modernism is what gave you the Renaissance, it's what gave you the Reformation, it's what gave you the Enlightenment, it's what gave you everything that is good about the world today. It's what gave you modern medicine, modern transport, the phone you're probably watching this on, the car you take to work, the work that you do. All of that happened because of modernism. Postmodernism rejects the lot. It wants rid of it. Right? Postmodernism denies facts. It doesn't accept that facts are real. It doesn't accept that logic is real. It accepts only the notion of narratives, of groups, and of relative power. Why does it think about this? The reason is women think in terms of power and men think in terms of sex. It's fucking obvious when you look at it. And that is why the cultural Marxist left has now become basically an extension of feminism. And it seeks to destroy society by eradicating all men. Well, all masculine men. It's quite happy to put up with emasculated not men. But, because I guess they know they occasionally need to get pregnant. But it denies factuality. It denies the understanding of the world in terms of objective reality. It says that doesn't count because only your point of view counts. Postmodernism takes what's essentially the point of view of a literary critic, and it's a fair one, that you can take any book, you know, there's loads of them, take any book and you can read it from as many different ways as there are people who read it. Everybody's going to get something slightly different out of it. You know? This is a piece of paper. It doesn't matter how many bloody different ways you look at it, it's still a piece of paper. Right? If somebody's pointing a gun at you, it doesn't matter how many different ways you want to look at it, it's still a gun, you're still in danger. Okay? It's a real thing. Objective reality is real. It counts, it has teeth, and it bites. If I step outside my door, I live in the country, and I don't look and I get run down by one of the fucking 12-ton tractors that they use around here these days, squished into a raspberry pulp right across the road in front of my house, can I honestly then say, well, that was just a point of view, you know. I'm not really dead. Like shit I can. I'm very glad in many ways that this document has come to light at last, because it really is a moment of lancing the boil. The pus that has infected the left for many, many years now, and it's been getting worse and worse and worse, needs to be let out. The left is no longer a credible force in society because it's ridiculous. It's using group politics to try and enforce its way, but it has lost all credibility in terms of debate. I mean, just listen to them. Just listen to them. And listen to what they say, and you'll go, I don't want any part of this. But if they can prevent you from finding out that their distortion of facts is routine and extreme, egregious, I would say, then maybe they'll get away with it. And that's what they're relying on. They're relying on you not knowing the facts, you not reading the papers, to get away with their lies. And that's why, just so you know, and I'm not blowing my own horn here, that is why I put on my website my links page, which contains many links that support the arguments I make in my blog posts and in my writing generally. You can go there, you can look at the papers. Most of them, the ones I put up anyway, will be full-length papers. Some are only abstracts, and you would have to have a, you'd have to have a subscription to the academic journal in question to read the full thing. But I try and keep those to a minimum. It's only when they're really important that I put them in, and I always put in the abstracts. You get the link to the abstract. Read the papers. Read what the science says. Read what is real. Read what is true. Don't listen to this leftist puff, this pack of lies coming from humanities departments, which should be closed down. They should just be shut. That's it. End of story. No more funding. We should do that now. We should recognise that the left, particularly the left in academia, has become a major threat. It's insurrection. It's a major threat. It's actually sedition to the entire structure of society that we live in. It threatens democracy itself. It wants rid of democracy. It doesn't want democracy. It wants communism. You can't have both. Communism is not democratic. It is dictatorship. It's a dictatorship of the people led by the intellectuals. And the powerful ones, the ones with power, the ones with the guns who can kill you. That's what happens in communism, right? So we need to get in amongst this. We really do. We need to get in amongst this and fight these people and shout them down, decry them. Just stop them at every corner. Anytime one of your friends comes up and says, oh, but the Google, tell them, have you read the paper? They won't have. Anytime one of your women friends turns up and says, oh, but feminism is only about equality, say, no, it bloody is not about equality. You had equality 50 years ago. What it's about now is about getting rid of masculinity. Getting rid of men so that society can be run by women. That's all it's about. That's all feminism is about. And that's all this argument in Google is about, because they are terrified. They're absolutely terrified that people read the facts, they understand the papers, they look at the science and they go, well, maybe, wait a minute, maybe putting women in positions of absolute power in every part of government is not such a good idea. Maybe we need a balance. And feminists can't stand the idea of a balance. They don't want to share power with men. They want total control of society.